Well, hello everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? If we do this every time, but it's kind of important. If you guys can hear me okay, please let me know. So on the three services, Facebook and also on Twitch and also YouTube. And I'm trying to see if my thing is going here on Zbrush Central. And it looks like it is. Okay, just 1 second here. Okay, it looks like we have a little bit of a delay on Facebook, so I'm trying to figure that out. Try this one more time. Okay, post. Here we go. Okay. Cool. Okay, loud and clear on YouTube. Okay, thanks a lot. Did this. And let's see. I think there's a bit of a delay on Facebook, so we'll wait for that. And I think I don't know, Twitch should be pretty immediate. So if there's anybody on Twitch, please chime in that you can hear me fine. And we can get going. Get my camera to work a little bit better. Here we go. All right. Fantastic. So I'm still waiting for folks from Facebook and also folks from Twitch to let me know that my audio is coming through clearly. And how's the volume? Everybody good with the volume? Is it too loud? Is there any popping? Next time I'm going to try a new setup. I actually got a stand-up mic. I'm going to be hooking it up. I didn't have time to do it today. All right, so Darling02 on Twitch sent a emoji, which I'm hoping is, I can't really tell what it is, but I hope it means that he can hear me okay. And then we're just waiting for somebody from Facebook to chime in, and then we will be all good to go. All right, just wait a couple more minutes here. Got quite a few people joining in, so hopefully one of them will, in the chat, let me know whether you can hear me good or not. Okay, so we're kind of, okay, hello, Marcio, and all right, good. So Twitch is good, and I just am waiting for Facebook. We go. All right, great. Thanks, Carlos. All right, so we're good to go. Okay, so we're kind of getting towards the last few episodes of this car, and I just wanted to bring this up right here because I wanted to just kind of go over some of the things, a little bit of a reminder of where we were. So we sculpted this car. It kind of looked like this. Initially, let me see if I actually have the sculpt of it. I do, and it's right here. So this is basically just the sculpt that we did initially, and then we parted this thing out and we retopologized it. So then we got something like this, and I'll bring up the wireframe for it. And so this is kind of just polygroups bringing in from the different parts that we created, and I brought this in. I retopologized it in Maya. I did a little bit of that last week, so you can watch last week's episode to figure out how that was done. So now back in ZBrush, what I did is I used a capability called Inset to inset these parts, and I'll show you again how that is done. So that's basically the Zmodeler brush, right? And then what you do is you just go in and you say Inset, and you choose Inset Region, and you choose Polygroup All. So then when you click here, you notice that you're creating that inset, right? So basically just creating an edge loop over here around the whole object, right? And you want that because you want a border around it. So once you do that, you get something like this. And then one other extra step that I did here is that I made the polygroups of the inset and this part the same. And I think there is a setting for that as well, but I didn't do it beforehand, so I did it after the fact. So when I got done, I ended up with something like this. I did a little bit more adjustment to it. And then from this, I basically just used panel loops to get the panels, right? And then that's basically just geometry and panel loops over here with, so it's under edge loop, panel loops, and I chose a very thin setting. I chose a bevel about this. Oops, I added a point there. I had a bevel about this big, and also said regroup loops. Okay, and then just clicked on panel loops, and then after that I got this, right? So I'm doing a little bit of the kind of quick version of it. So I got something like this, right? So now I've got all the panel loops, I've got all the paneling, and then I went down to working on it some more, and these are some of the finished forms that we have so far. So I'm going to go ahead and bring, let me see, make sure, okay, we got this going. I'll turn off solo, and I'll move it to where we are today. I did spend a little bit of time on it over the weekend. I had some free time, so I did work on the model a little bit. And we have something like this. And I also made some new discoveries. So don't look at the door. The door we still have to do some work on today. But I also made some discoveries that while I was kind of moving and arranging this area up, I decided if I kind of took them out, it would create a nice little inlet for lights of the car. So I'm going to put a light over here inside, maybe protruding out a bit, and then I'm going to put another light inside here and maybe a light inside here. I was also playing with the idea of maybe putting some guns over here, so kind of created like a little bit of a scoop there for some sort of a thing to come out, so we'll be working on that today as well. And I don't know why these are not visible. Let me go turn them on. These parts right here, I think, is this them? Yep. So those are these parts in here. And so I did some work on the canopy. I did some work on these glass pieces over here. And basically did some test renders. I'll do one now. So just here's a BPR render of it. And I should turn shadows off. This will go a lot faster. But basically, I kind of liked what I was getting over here. So I'm getting, this is going to be how it looks like from the front with in perspective mode. And if I turn perspective off, so kind of the camera angle I'm going to be picking is between, I'm definitely not going to be using isometric. I'm going to be picking a camera angle between 35 and 50, maybe go to 80 millimeter lens. So this is kind of what I'll be getting, and then I also did a test render, and let me turn shadows off real quick here because we don't really need them. We just need transparency, and AO adds a nice effect. So here we go. This is what it's going to look like from the top. Okay, so these are the guys in there, which is nice. And this is going to be the dashboard. And this whole top part and this part right here are going to be glass. So that's great. And we should be starting to render this probably the next episode. So today we're going to try and finish up as much of the modeling as we can in the next 2 hours. So notice here I've basically created a folder where I am putting in all the finished forms. So I'm done with this top canopy, and this is what it looks like. So here I'll solo it out. If I basically go down to the actual geometry, it's this. It's really, really simple geometry. As you can see, it's very simple. And then when I do dynamic subdiv, I get this smooth shape. And I check the thickness of it just to make sure I've got enough of a thickness. And a good way to do that is with the selection. So now I'm seeing inside, and it's going to be a glass that's about this thick, and that's fine. And that will render nicely. I will choose different IORs for it, index of refraction, just to get the glass to work right once it is in the renderer. Now the other thing I also did is I applied this blue material to it, and the reason why I did that is because I wanted to see, and also I've chosen basic material too, which is has more of a specular, because I just want to see that these surfaces are pretty clean. And with dynamic subdiv, I can actually go and make this even more. I can add another subdivision to it. So again, this is all in dynamic subdiv, which is over here. And I can add one more subdivision to it, and now I can see that this is pretty smooth. And what I'm looking for is like little bumps and stuff, because with a car, you want things to be as smooth as possible. Just want to make sure symmetry is on. I'm sorry. Let me restore my custom UI here and get rid of Lightbox. Okay, and symmetry was not on, so I'm just going to undo this all the way back to the beginning, just to make sure that whatever I am doing here is being recorded on both sides of this, because it is a symmetric piece. Okay, so now I'm basically just checking to see the specular on it, and it looks pretty tight. I'm not worried about the edges too much, because the edges are going to have something inside of it, which I think I've already done as well. And if I haven't, I'll do it right now. Okay, so here's this canopy part in the front, so just checking to make sure that this is right too, and this is pretty much almost done as well. So these two together here are done. And then this part right here, which initially I started out thinking it would be transparent, then I decided against it. I thought it would be cooler looking if it wasn't. And now what I need to do is just kind of match this up. So this is going to be metal, and it is going to be something that basically houses the glass inside. Okay, and here I think I'm going to use H-polish to make this a little bit more kind of planar, a little bit more hard surfacey, right? And so that's going to be the that part. Okay, let me move this out to here. Just make sure it's not really interfering with this piece of glass, which is going to open. Right, so we determined that the way that this car is going to open up is going to be like this, and I'll just go ahead and do it. So here, this front part is going to flip forward, right? So I just need to put this at a good place. Kind of, if I look at it from the top, just kind of intersecting with this area, right? So there'll be some mechanism inside, which we're going to build at some point, and it opens up like this, right? And then these back windows, which should be up here somewhere, right here, these ones, they're going to open up like this, right? And then, so these two open up, and then the door opens up to the outside, and then the people get in and out of it, right? So let's just go ahead and close this back up. And I might have some shots where these are open. I have not determined that yet. But for now, we're going to model the car with it being closed. So once I'm done with the stream, I'll probably be working on this car and doing some renders and different shots of it over time as well. I usually, the nice thing about doing something like this in Zbrush is that you can continue to enhance and do more work on it as time goes on. Okay, so here it looks like there's a little bit of a gap, so I want to close that up like so, and close this one up too. And yeah, so this is good so far. Let me just finish this thing up over here as well. So once I'm done with these parts, and let me solo this out, it looks like there's a weird kind of pinching going on here. So let's just go ahead and inflate that out. So at this point, I am focusing on just finished pieces so that I can move forward. This is kind of a fun part at this point because a lot of the hard work is done. Now it's just basically doing refinements and getting the final version of this done. Okay, and I'm not really going to see the inside part of this, so I'm not going to worry about it for now. And yeah, so these three parts are done. So let's move on to another part that we want done. I think this part over here is pretty much done as well. So it looks like it's fitting in really well. Oh, nope. I need to do some tweaking down here. like so. And the transition between this and the other part, I'm going to turn transparency here on, is going to be really key. By the way, if anybody has questions, please ask. And we will pause and answer them. I'm not going to be answering a lot of questions today. I'm going to try and just kind of work and get this thing done. But if you do have some questions, I can take them. I'll be pausing every once in a while just to take the questions. Okay, so it looks like we have somebody, Antonio Obrigado, sure. I think that's Portuguese. Okay, and here I'm just basically kind of creating these transitional shapes over here and on the bottom. So this car really doesn't have a hood, right? So there's no engine over here. And the engine or the thing that drives it is back here. And since it's a flying car or a hovering car, it can just hover. And then the mechanics can open this up down here and open this up maybe, or just open these three things up, and then the engine would be in here, right? So it's kind of a whole new way of thinking about it. It does have a trunk, which is over here. So we'll be kind of doing some work there. And again, if I'm working on a project or something is needed, I basically will be just working on the portions that are going to be seen in the movie or in the game. I would not be spending time on areas that are not going to be seen or not going to be worked on. Okay, do I have ghost mode on? I do. Okay. All right. So here I'm just kind of getting this to create a good transition. And by the way, a good thing to do is to turn AccuCurve on if you want to get a little bit sharper edges, which I am trying to get over here, like so. Right, I've got a bunch of emojis coming in, and unfortunately in the app that I have, I see these emojis as being really small, so I can't really tell what they are. So I'll have to actually go into Twitch later and see what they are. So I can't react to your emojis that you're sending me, unfortunately. So please don't take that personally. I just can't see them. They're tiny little icons on my screen. Okay, so I've got this part here, and then I just switch back to this one and start moving it around. Oh, today is emoji day. I'm just getting oh, look at that, a bunch of emojis. Right. So here is this piece like that. And again, I just don't want it to cross over to the other pieces. I want to create a little bit of an area there. And that's a lot easier done before, you know, if I just left things the way they are. But I did, of course, after the fact, do some design work over here. So that's why they are kind of passing over. And the other thing also to note is that this is glass over here, this bottom part. So maybe I can bring these in just a little bit to, and I should inflate this like so, but I don't want it to cross out of this part. There we go. All right, so it looks like it is kind of showing this on the inside, but, and we'll see that inside the glass, but, and it's always good to kind of get these to be as even as you can get them. So I get to work on cars quite a bit work-wise, so I kind of have a little bit of a knowledge of how these parts interact with each other. Of course, I worked on existing cars, so I have to go based on that. But again, here we have a newer tech, so I do have some freedoms, but I do have to stick to some areas where we already have an idea of how things are supposed to be. Okay, bad mesh, hello. Okay, great. Looks like we got quite a few people here today. All right. So this is looking good. Again, I just want to make sure now every once in a while, make sure to turn transparency off too to see that those transitions are really well done. There's this bottom glass here too. And we decided to make this part glass because they can look through here and see stuff underneath. But what's really funny is when I render it, what we see is their shoes. So they'd have to move their feet out of the way to be able to look through these windows. Here, I'll do it again so you can see it. See? So they'd have to move their feet in so they can look down and see through this window. All right. Hello. I can't read your name. It's in Russian. So glad to have you there. Okay, so Vivian is asking what I'm making, and the answer is I'm making a flying car. So a flying car like the one in Blade Runner, and this has been going on for a while, by the way. This is episode 7, I think. And I think we're going to go to 10 on this one. We're going to go to 10 episodes. So you can, if you go to Zbrush Live and you go to presenters and you find me, right? You can see all the videos here. So these are all the different videos. And as you can see here, we started, we ended this set here. Let me make the screen big so you can see it all. We ended the set here with this robot. So that was season 1. And season 2, we started working on the car. So we've been working at this thing for a while. So episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can watch these. Each one of them is about 2 hours. And episode 6, episode 7. So I guess today is episode 8. And then we're going to have 2 more, which are going to be more kind of final finish and rendering. So hopefully that explains it. Yeah, so the way I do my streams is I do one piece and then I do either 8 episodes or this one's gone to 10 just because we're doing both the outside and the inside of this car. All right, so at this point I've got some pieces that are done, so I'm just going to move them down into the group here, the finished forms. I'm just going to move them in there so that bottom piece of glass is done. I think it's looking good. And again, I'm checking it here just to make sure that it is smooth. And it's looking pretty good. Let me go ahead and add another subdivision to it. Here under Dynamic Subdiv. Go to 3 and check this over here. Maybe just give it a touch of a smoothing over here like so. Actually, I'm going to undo that. Another way to kind of get good shapes is just use the H polish and just polish up the model so it is more straight. Okay, and this being glass, it's going to look pretty good. The only thing is here I've got this weird little gap happening over there, so let me fix that. So I'm going to solo this thing out. Here, here's another thing that I need to fix is that while I was working on this over here, I made this really sharp, and I don't want it to be sharp. I do want the glass to have some thickness. So Inflate takes care of that very nicely. There we go. Right, and Zbrush is really nice with this kind of fit and finish part. And move tool here, and let's see again, how is this reacting to this? It's reacting well. And then here I want this to kind of have more sharper edge. Again, move with AccuCurve does that really nicely. Okay, so I've got nice clean surfaces here for the glass on the bottom of the car. There it is. Okay. All right, so that's good. And then, so that piece is done. I think this piece is pretty much close to being done too. And as we're getting these pieces finished, we are just moving them into, all right, so the glass is going to go on top of this piece. Actually, maybe it should go underneath it. Let's see how that would work. I would have to bring this whole thing out. And it shouldn't be that hard to do. Here we go. I think that'll create a kind of a better transition. there. And let's see what that looks like without transparency. That looks pretty tight. Look at it over here. Yep. So again, this is a part that I really, really enjoy. It does take a little bit of time, but it's just refining the shapes and making them look really cool. So when you put a car shader on this later on, it's going to really look great. Okay, it looks like there's a little bit of gap over here, which we can fix. Yep. So again, just to mention, one of the things that you should do always is when you have this kind of a shinier material on there, you can see that surface really nicely. Another thing usually car designers do is put a zebra pattern on there, and maybe we'll do that next week. I haven't made one yet. And then the other thing I want to do here is that this is kind of coming in as a contour, which is really nice, but I want to give it a little bit of an edge. So I'm just using, again, the move brush with AccuCurve to kind of give it more of this kind of angular look like this. And I'm going to bring this over on top. I'm going to create like a little bit of a break over here, and I can manipulate this other part. And again, all this is really simple topology, right? If I look at the topology of these things, they're really, really simple geometry. They're not really complex. I'm not really sculpting with millions of polygons. I'm just moving very, very few polygons around. And that's why I get this fast interaction. And that's kind of how I work. I usually try to work with the minimal number of polys so I get a more responsive model. Okay, so this piece looks like it's done. So let's move it into the finished section. And this is something that I do all the time, which is you know, once folders are available in Zbrush, it's been really helpful for me because I can easily move things back and forth. All right, looks like there are some questions here. Luis, thank you. And bad measure question, except edge loop settings, some suggestions for paneling tools. You know, the panel loops in Zbrush are really amazing. They're really good. I would just, it's just a really one button press, and you can undo it and redo it until you get the exact type of panels you want. And it's great for cars, it's great for kind of mechanical objects, and you get some really amazing results with it. And there are quite a few people that have good tutorials on those, so definitely go watch them. And panel loops are really one of the really strong capabilities of Zbrush. I think it definitely gives Zbrush users a big advantage having those utilities. Hope bad mesh that answers your question. If I didn't, you can re-ask it in a different way, and I'll make sure to answer your question. Okay, so there's this glass piece over here, and by the way, this opening over here is another opening where I have like maybe lights or something come out of it. So I just kind of thought that looked like a nice feature, and I let that be. I think these are done. I don't really need to do any more work on these, except maybe after the door is done. So I'm just going to move these down also to the finished pieces here. All right, I'm just kind of going down part by part. Okay, so the doors I'm going to do a little bit later on because they're going to be a pain in the butt. But I'll just do this part. I think this part's pretty much almost done too. So this part here is kind of a big part. It looks like this. And with actually manufactured cars, there would never be something that is this big. There would basically be some sort of a break somewhere. This would be two pieces. But since we're in the future, I'm assuming that there are technologies that will make this type of thing available or possible, sorry. So I'm going to leave this be. And there are some things I need to fix in this one, which is in this area over here. All right, so go back to transparency, start moving this around. And for this one, I just want to leave enough of a room in between the two here, because if you look at cars, that's kind of where different cut lines are. So here we go. I took this into Keyshot and did some test renders with it. When it's done, I think I'm going to really, it's going to look really good. Okay, so just bring out this piece so it matches this over here. And so I just want it to kind of look like these two pieces will fit together. Again, it doesn't have to be that precise. With cars that I work on my jobs, these have to be really precise. But in this one, since it's not going to be actually built in real life, I can do a little bit of fudging. But of course, it does have to look believable. So there's only so much forgiveness you have with this. Okay, great. So here I've got this little triangular area, and that's kind of one of the issues with panel loops is that it gives you these triangular areas. And again, the way to solve them, I'm going to bring the polyframe up, is notice here that again, I don't really have that much geometry, so I could subdivide this and do it then. Or again, with AccuCurve on and the move tool, I can just kind of do as much of this as I can over here, and then when I subdivide it, I might be able to add a little bit more geometry just to close this up. And also the transition between these two looks like it could be a little bit better, so I will do that as well. Here we go. I don't think I've worked on this piece yet, so I'm just going to worry about these two, like so. There we are. Okay. All right, so that's fixed. Again, the door I'm not really going to worry about, but I do want to have, I do want to have a straight line on the bottom where the door is. Okay, so Luis, you had a question about texturing. What is there a specific question or how we're going to texture it? Right, so I'm just kind of creating this straight area down here for the door. And again, just shining the light on it. Looks like there's a bit of a dip over here. I want these kind of specular lines to be straight, as straight as possible. And one of the things I thought I'd do is I could probably play around with the lights. Okay, so this is a good time to drop a quick save and maybe answer some questions while that's happening. Drink some water. Okay, we're back. So here there's like some weird stuff going on. And let me add another subdivision level here to see if that's going to be better. Right, so here I'm just going to add another subdivision level and smooth that out. It looks like it's going to pinch, but it's kind of in an area where nobody's going to notice. So I'm just going to take that as a hit. Okay, I wonder how you usually transfer this kind of ZBrush model to more technical CAD software. I don't. I don't usually transfer it to technical CAD software. That's somebody else's job. I give them this model, and then they can re-topologize it with CAD. I don't think I'm very popular with them because there's so many things you can do in ZBrush that you can't do in CAD. But a lot of car designers that I have been working with, a lot of them are starting to use polygonal tools, and even the primary software that they use is adding polygonal modeling capabilities as well, because there's so much more you can do with polygons than you can with NURBS. And with NURBS, you get those clean curves and clean surfaces, but with polygons, you can get some really cool shapes. So they can figure it out. And sometimes they make some changes to the design because it makes more sense for the manufacturing. Of course, I mean, they know CAD, they know how to manufacture these things. So they understand manufacturing processes, they understand how these panels are made. so they can put in those types of design things. I'm definitely not a mechanical engineer or a car CAD person. I usually work the other way around. I usually get CAD models and I convert them so that they can put them in advertising, or they can do some work on it that they were not able to do with it being a CAD model. But those CAD models, I mean, they get pretty sophisticated. Like they've got every single screw, every single piece of the car is usually done in a CAD model. Like if you have a car and you go look at it, just imagine that when you get a model like that, it basically will have everything in that car, every single piece, every single seatbelt piece, every single screw, every single piece inside. So there is just a model that has all of it. And it's usually a bunch of people that work on it. It's just not one person. Like there's a ton of people that work on a car. And this is the manufacturing people, right? Designers usually they have a little bit more freedom. They're basically getting more kind of gestural components. Okay. No, usually, I haven't gotten ahead of. I've worked with designers, so I've kind of worked with designers themselves, but I haven't worked ahead of. I usually go the other way. Usually, I work on a car after it's done. Right after the car is done, they hire me to retopo it so that it works for an advertising thing that they have. So they might want to morph the car, like have it bend or do some weird thing, and they actually need it to be geometry um, that is polygonal. So then they basically will have me retopo the car or remodel the car. Um, But a lot of times I also work with the designers where they ask me like, hey, I want to make some shape like this. How do I do it? And they're starting to use ZBrush more and more. Every shop I go into, they usually don't start out using ZBrush, but when they see what I can do with it, um, they they start getting interested. And then they hate me because it's going to take them a while to learn it, which is fine. I'm sure that it took them a long time to learn the tools that they use now too. Alias doesn't seem like something you just sit in front of and go like, oh yeah, here's a car. All right, so here this is a big piece, so I have to kind of trace all the edges and make sure all the edges look okay on their own. So here I'm going to solo it out again, and I could use polypaint to isolate these out if I want to. Okay, so again, I'm not really worried about the door, but I am worried about this transition over here. So I just want to make sure that's smooth, and it looks like it is. And then over here, I want this to have more of a kind of a square shape and not as round of a shape. So I'm going to squish this down and do this. So here, what I'm doing right here, like this thing that I just did, it would be a nightmare to do it in CAD. It really would be. They'd have to change so many patches. So when they're designing, and they can't make free decisions like this, they have to really kind of do a very staggered approach. All right. Okay, what your topology favorite? My quad design, Z-sphere, topology, or topology brush. Well, it depends, right? If I go to a shop and they have Maya, then I will use Quadra, which is pretty fast. I like that a lot. And if they don't, if they just have ZBrush, or if they don't have Maya, or they have like some other tools, then I'll ask them if I can bring a machine in with Maya on it. I have used Topo Gun before; it's not bad. And yeah, I mean, there's quite a few retopology tools out there now. I think the ones in ZBrush are pretty good, but I think the folks at ZBrush are probably focusing more on making Zremesher work, so that you just will press one button and get retopology done. Right now, it does about 80% of what I need done with Zremesher I can do. And then the rest I usually, if I have to do manual retopology, like I kind of did with this one, I usually I go to Quadra because I'm pretty fast on it. I can use Quadra and retopologize something really, really quickly. And you saw me do a little bit of that last week. So if you guys want to see how that's done, you can see it over there. And honestly, Quadra in Maya is pretty. I mean, on its own, it's a pretty good retopology tool. Topo Gun, they haven't updated it for a while. It's pretty kind of. It's just the same thing. I think it's version 2.0. It's been 2.0 forever. I don't even know if they're working on it anymore or whatever. I don't know if they're just selling it or what they're doing. Okay, so this is looking good over there. I'm going to hide this top spoiler for now. We're going to work on that later and start working on this area. So here, I kind of don't know if I really like this wobbly design here, but I don't really care that much about it because it's going to be hidden with the spoiler. So I'm going to do the best that I can with it. Okay, so we've got somebody coming more from a technical CAD user and wanting to learn ZBrush. Didn't really sure where to start. Okay, so if you're coming from a CAD background and you want to learn ZBrush, to learn ZBrush, just there's so many resources to learn ZBrush. So the best one is Z Classroom. So Z Classroom. There we go. Thanks for correcting that for me, Google. So Z Classroom is Pixelogic's own website. And if you go there, they have quite a bunch of stuff. They have from people that are starting to sculpting and modeling, texturing, posing and animation, rendering, plugins, etc. So they have a bunch of classes here. So, if you click on Get Started, you go to these classes and you can kind of learn all the different things, and they're always updating these things, always adding new stuff. So that's one good place to start. And then the other thing here is if you go and click on this Learn ZBrush, if you'd like to read, there's really good documentation as well. There's third-party training and there's schools. I personally teach ZBrush at a few schools, and I don't know. It depends. There are people that are self-taught. There are people that like to take classes. There are people that like to read books. So there are some good books on it as well. There is, if anybody reads books anymore, there is, I forget what it's called, but it's by Eric Keller, and it is Introducing ZBrush, I think it's called, and it's pretty good. Eric is a really amazing writer. He's written quite a few books on ZBrush and Maya. And so if you'd like to learn from books, you can read his books. I have some of the work in his gallery in it. And like I said, he's a great friend of mine and a great writer. So you can, if you like learning from books, you can learn from books. That way, there's a lot of other types of books that have more hints and tips. I tend to have pretty much every single book that's written on ZBrush, and I always am learning new stuff about it, even now. Even though I teach it, even though I do these streams, even though I work with it almost every day, I'm still learning new things about it because it's a huge program. All right. Now the thing though is, if you're going to learn ZBrush, you have to give it the time. You can't be like, oh man, I've been working on this thing for 2 weeks now, and I can't make amazing stuff like, like Ara or like some of these great artists that have amazing ZBrush works on ZBrush Central, right? So you have to give it a good amount of time. Now there's some gaps in here where I'm going to actually see through when I render it, but what I'll do is I'll put stuff underneath it. I'll probably just put a whole version of the car or some stuff underneath it, so in these gaps here I will not see inside because I'm not really going to be making an engine or anything like that. I will be working a little bit more on the inside. I'll probably do that a little bit today, but again, there's only so much you can do, so much detail you need, unless people want to see it. Um, Like if this was being made for a game like Forza or something where, you can open it and there are different options you can buy and things like that, then I probably would have to make those parts. But for what I'm doing here, I'm not. This is purely a passion project, which is why I do streaming, because that way I can just work on stuff I want to work on and not work on stuff that is for any specific project. I get to be my own art director, and I'm usually a pretty picky and demanding art director. So if I was working for an art director, they would have had me not do a lot of these details. They'd be like, okay, no, we need this tomorrow, so do as little as you can to get the best possible product in the amount of time we have for it. Which is fine. That's their job, and I totally respect it and will work within those boundaries. All right, so here I'm working on this piece, which I shouldn't be because that's going to be the next one I'm going to work on. I still should stick to this guy right here. All right, so here I'm just working on these transitions, and I just want to make sure that these transitions are pretty smooth between one panel and the next. And panel loops gives me pretty good transitions as is, but I'm tweaking these a little bit more. So I'm getting to oh man, I inflated this too much. So I need to go back. Just play this back a little bit to maybe about here. And push that back in. All right, so again, looking at this transition, this is kind of a weird transition over here. I couldn't see this in a actual manufactured car, a transition like this. But I don't know. When I'm driving, I always look at cars and how they're made, how the shapes transition from one to the other. And most of the cars are really utilitarian. Like there really is no design thought given to them. But I do also always look at exotic cars too. I mean, I'm lucky I live in LA. There's quite a few exotic cars around where I live. So today I saw a really beautiful green Aston Martin, one of the new ones, that looked amazing. And luckily I got to have a good amount of time to see it because it was stopped at a red light, for a long red light. Okay. All right, so that surface is looking good. Let's see, move over down to here. All right, so I'm getting a bunch of emojis still. At some point, I will go back to Twitch and see these emojis in their actual size and try to decipher what you were trying to tell me. All right. This is a really big piece. It has a lot of borders, so it's going to take a little bit more time than the rest of them. But hopefully we're almost done with it. So a lot of these tweaks are really very, very kind of small tweaks. All right. Okay, I think let me just do a quick circumference of this. So on the bottom it's good, on here it's good. Oh, yeah, got some mess over here. So you see how this is kind of lumpy over here? We don't want that. So H-polish is our friend. And again, I'm not really that worried about this because nobody's going to really look at this up close. And there is the spoiler that's going to come on top of it. So I don't really care that much about that right now. And I could always kind of do something interesting here where, like, if I want to have lights or something, I can just tweak these out. So let me see. Yeah, I could put either lights on top of it, which I can easily do, or I could do something to cover it up. That's another freedom I have, which real car designers don't, is they can't really cover things up. They can't say, like, I want to put a light here just to cover up this ugly part. So, okay, I think this is looking good here. All right, let's just make sure that the trunk is okay. I think that's the last border I have because this is all done. This is all done. Right, so the trunk here. One of the things that'd be really nice is some sort of a thing that will allow me to have, to see these corners over here. I'm having to push and pull them from both sides to get kind of a more of a right angle. And it'd be cool if there was something that did that for me. If I smooth it, if I just hit it with smooth, then it basically kills that angle for me. So I have to very gently kind of get the right angle and make sure that, yeah, see, like I got a bunch of, now that I see with the light, you see this kind of little pinching happening over here. And if I fix that, then I get the angle to kind of soften up, which I don't want. And so this is going to be the trunk like so. And again, I want this to be a bit sharper over here. And maybe I want to straighten this out a little bit like that. And then match it with the trunk, which I will be working on soon here. All right, so I think this is good for that big piece, and I knew this was going to take a long time. So now that that's done, we'll move it down into the finished pieces, like so. And then let's see what's next. Here we go. These are the doors. There's these pieces. Where are they? At the bottom, these ones. Okay, so these don't have dynamic subdiv on, so press D, get dynamic subdiv, and let's start moving these into place. So let me change what's going on with my brush size here. I just lose my hotkeys. Here, let me just do this one more time here. Config, restore custom UI. Here we go, we're back. All right, and so little geometry means I can make all these tweaks and make all sorts of decisions at this point. Again, I just need to make this kind of a more of a right angle over here. Easily done. Just need to make sure I don't really touch it with smooth because that'll soften it back up. Okay, and let's turn that off, and let's see. So this part right here is going to come down to the ground. So if I look at the car this way, like so, you'll notice that once it lands on the ground itself, that the front part has this piece that's going to be sticking out. So these will come down like that. Turn perspective mode off. So these actually will come down. And let's say that this bottom part here is the ground. So these will kind of come down like so and rest the car up. So that, and then, these will lift off as the car will lift off back up into flying mode. And I'm really taking a lot of freedoms with kind of the technology that is in these cars, because it's stuff that should be there but isn't yet. So who knows, maybe Tesla in 30, 40 years might figure out how to make flying cars. Okay, so here I'm just kind of going to create a little bit of a bulge over here, like so, for the whole panel. I can do that. And just straighten this up over here. So a lot of this work I'm doing right now has to do with how the light is bouncing on these surfaces. And I just want to make sure that the surfaces are as smooth and continuous as possible. All right, so that's good. And I think that's good for these parts. Let me make sure here. Look at them on their own. And I think this could use some of that. Straightening out some of these edges so they are more flowing. And let's make sure the thickness is okay on the edges, and it is. Okay, so we're done with this part. Let's move it in down to our finished pieces. Okay. And now this one. Again, not divided yet, so let's put it in dynamic subdiv mode. And look at the topology on this. It's like, oops, it's almost nothing, right? It's just really, really simple. But with dynamic subdiv, I actually can tweak it while it looks like it is high detail. And I also want to give this a bit of a bulge as well. Not too much. And for this, I'm going to turn off AccuCurve because I don't need that kind of pinching. I just need it to kind of bulk out just a little bit here. There we go. Like that. Turn AccuCurve back on. And figure out the questions. All right, so sorry, query with how much subdivision they are. Okay, so here, this model right here, and let me isolate this part. This is kind of an important thing in my process. I usually like to work with the minimum amount of topology. So this model, this is it right here, right? So if you look at it this way, this is the only, this is how many polygons are going on in this model. If I look at it over here, this is 566 polygons, and it's got the inside part too. So like if I didn't even need the inside part, I could get rid of it. The only reason why I keep it is because it helps me keep the coherence of the model. But if this was going to go into production, I'd probably get rid of all those inside parts, right? So it's very, very light. And the only reason why I'm seeing it as smooth is because I got dynamic subdivision on. So if I turn that off, and let me do that over here. Under geometry and dynamic subdiv, if I turn that off, this is the model right here. It's like almost nothing. It's just very, very little geometry. So when I turn dynamic subdivision on, and I maybe give it 3 dynamic subdivision levels, so this is what it would look like if it was divided. But I'm actually not working with it as it's divided. I'm working on it just as it is these few polygons that I'm working on. And that's like a really super powerful capability of Zbrush. Maya has a similar thing where you do smooth mesh preview mode, which is kind of a similar thing to this, but this is just so much more powerful right here. Because Maya can only handle a certain number of polygons. Like after you get to a certain level of detail, it will be super slow and sluggish, and then after a while, you just will not be able to use it anymore. But with Zbrush, you can just kind of go to millions of polygons, and it'll be like, okay, yeah, sure, give me more. All right, so there's that, and let's go ahead and add that piece to our finished pieces. So once again, you see that I've got a kind of a nice process to work with here, and where I'm just going piece by piece and fixing it. This and take some questions. Okay. Hey, Aline in Brazil, thanks for watching. And if you want to watch the rest of this, you can always, it's recorded, you can always go back and watch it later. And yeah, the thing is you can't ask questions though, but that's cool. You can come on next week or the week after, or next session or the session after and ask the questions. Okay, so here we've got this piece, and I think this piece is done. I don't know if there's anything else I want to do with this one. Turn the poly frame off of it. Okay, let me divide this a little bit more. I just want to see what it looks like, and I might kind of sculpt on this a little bit. Okay, geometry, dynamic subdiv. On. Here we go. Okay, and that's good. And with this piece, if I wanted to, I could do an interesting kind of design here, so it's not as smooth. I could just kind of create something like this on it. Of course, this is not going to translate to what's underneath, right? So here, if I go to solo here, that, I guess it will a little bit, but not much. But I don't really care about it because this isn't going to open up or do anything. Okay, and then let's go ahead and do this. And that's good. So this is done too. I'll move that part in. So this is maybe some sort of panel where, like, if there was a gun in there, this would be where the ammo would be or something like that. And it opens up in some way or another. And we are going to add some parts here, like door handles and all sorts of kit bash parts later on as well. Maybe I'll do that today. And by the way, today I'm also going to introduce something that I am going to be putting on Gumroad. Maybe I'll do that right now. So basically, there are different ways of getting primitives in Zbrush. So you can always go into Lightbox and go into Tool, and you can pick, or Project, you can pick like some things to start out with, like a sphere or a cylinder or something like that. Okay, that's one good way of starting with it. But when you're working on a model with a lot of pieces like this, if you bring in one of these things, it's going to get rid of what's there. Under Tool, there are some as well. There are other ways. The Zbrush has its own IMM primitive brush. So there's this one right here, which is this one, IMM primitives, right? And so there are all these primitives that it has. However, some of these primitives don't have the right topology for me, so I made my own. I made my own two brushes, and I'll show them to you. So I made two of them. There's this one, and I'll go ahead and let me go to, and this is what they look like. And I'll go ahead and turn polyframe on so you can see. Right, so these are the basic primitives that I have. So these are Kermaco primitives prime. Or core, sorry, not prime. And if I do this to it, let me choose a different color here. Or actually, let me even choose a different material. So here we go. I'll choose skin shade 4 and do a render. So you can see here that these guys, and shadows on here. Nope. Okay, I don't need AO on either. Okay, so you can see here that these are all quadded models. Right, so you basically have a basic cube and a kind of a cube that's subdivided once, subdivided twice. I've got a basic sphere, and then I go all the way up to, here I'll just go through the different ones. So this is the basic sphere, and then I go to this sphere right here, which is subdivided. So this is sphere 16, sphere 32, and sphere 64. So I just want to add like a sphere to my scene. I can just go ahead and use an insert mesh brush to add it. And then I have semispheres. So there's a semisphere 32 and a semisphere 64. And then I've got cylinders, and these are all quad cylinders. So excuse me, you can see that all these lines aren't coming in and creating a massive pole over here. And I don't know if this is the right material. I think I'm going to go back to startup material. Here we go. And so that's basically a smaller cylinder and a more detailed one, and then a more detailed one, and then I've got some pipes. So I'm going to make this available for free on Gumroad, and I wanted to do it before this stream, but It takes a while for it to go live, so look for it. I will be putting the links to it on the notes for the stream, so you can get this for free. And the way it looks is like it looks like this. So here, I think I have it loaded up. So it's this one right here, right? So there's 15 different ones, and then you can just choose the one you want. So you can choose the cube, for example. Here's the cube, and then you can also change it around. And then you can add this type of cube, and you can also change it around. Then you can add this side of a cube, change it around. This type of sphere, this type of sphere. So you can just add these to your models, or you can use Mesh from Brush to just pop it in. So this makes life a lot easier, especially if you're adding a bunch of parts, and we'll do that in the project we're working on. Right, so there's this one, which basically is free. I'm just going to put it on Gumroad for $0. You can just go get it. And then I also have one that has more parts, which it has 33 parts, and it's this one right here. And I'll go ahead and expose that out. And this one has 33 parts. It has some of repeats from the other Zbrush IMM, but it has some extra pieces that I use all the time too. So here, I'll go ahead and render this out as well. And there it is. So this is what they look like. And so I've got the basic cubes. I've got a bunch of spheres. I've got these two types of spheres too, which could be interesting to use. I've got a couple of hemispheres. I've got the cylinders. I've got the pipes. I've got these pill shapes, right? And I've got a semi-pill shape as well. So this one right here. I've got these two as well. So let me go ahead and select them so you can see them better. So these are the semi-spheres, and then these are the pill shape, the capsule shape, right? So I've got the full capsule, and then I also have a detailed full capsule like that. And then I've got a semi full capsule, and you can just add these like in the car. Suppose I can just add these and then make them light. And then I've got this extended cylinder shape, and this is a really good one because, and I'll go ahead and load that IMM and load that cylinder, and I'll show you where this is really handy. Is I can just kind of do this to it like that, and then change the width of it to whatever I want. And then this would be a good shape to kind of go ahead and Boolean out a piece out. So let me choose a different shape here. Now let's say I choose that cylinder. Oh, that's what's happening. I'm in move mode. Right, so there it is. And then so what I could do is I can Boolean cut this out of this piece. So there's this piece, and then there's this piece, and I can separate them out, and then I can make a Boolean cut of that shape. And then there's this one, which is similar to it, but it is kind of this shape. And again, I can easily modify these. I've got a chain link, kind of a really simple one. Then I've got a really more sophisticated chain link as well. So I've got this one, and then this one. And then I've got this U shape that, that a lot of vehicles and stuff have it, so you can kind of attach things to it. And I've got these two versions of it. I've got a T-shaped cylinder, which is really useful. And then I've got a plus-shaped cylinder. And then I've got this one, which is a cutter object that I use a lot. So this one right here. Nope, not that one. This one. It's kind of hard because I've got the brush and the model loaded as well. So this one right here, right? This is a shape that I use to subtract because, it's kind of a screw hole, right? So I basically just put this on a piece and subtract it. And this would be the screw hole, and then this would be the piece that kind of is on the side of it. And then there's this one here, which is kind of a really useful one if I want to create a grill of some sort. And I'll go ahead and show you how I do that. So here, I go in and do the inset and polygroup all. So I just do something like this. Oops. I want to do inset border only, and I do this. Not border only, not region. I think that's where each poly, and I can do something like that. And now I basically have a grill, just like that. And then I've got a tube of that as well. So here, if I want to create a tube with like a grill, I can do that just with that inset command. And let me double this out. Oops. So you can see the other side. So I basically get this shape really quickly, right? And it's really useful for that. And I can make this longer. Oops. And you see a lot of these things like on trucks and stuff where they basically have this type of a thing. This could also be like around a wire cable, or it could be really, really useful. So anyway, this one I'm going to sell, and and I kind of was wondering if I should ask you guys like how much I should charge for it. So so the first one, this one that just has 15, the brush, the brush, I'm just going to give away for free, so everybody can get that. Please grab it if you want to use it. And the other one, though, I am going to charge, but it's going to be nominal. I was wondering, like, if you guys could give me some feedback as to how much I should charge for it. Okay, dynamic subdivs. Why is that? Sometimes if you decide to go back to Dynamesh with dynamic subdivs, it tears Joe up badly, generating holes, etc. Okay, I'll answer that in a minute. But if you guys have any suggestions about how much I should charge for those IMM brushes, let me know. I'm thinking pretty nominal, but if people are ready to pay more for it, I will not say no. But I was thinking anywhere between $3 to $5 for the brush. So I don't want it to be, if you need it, I don't want it to be cost prohibitive for you to get it. Okay, all right, so the question is, with dynamic subdiv, you're asking, why is it that sometimes if you decide to go back to Dynamesh? Okay, so dynamic subdiv has doesn't really have anything to do with Dynamesh. So let me just go back to these models here and undo all of them here. Okay, so let's say I've got, and I'll just choose one of these shapes. I'll choose the cube. Okay, and solo it. Okay, and let me go to move mode. So if you have this cube like this, right? And you're going to dynamic subdiv it. So if you press D, then it turns into the sphere. And the number of subdivisions it has depends on what you do here. So if here under geometry and dynamic subdiv, right? If you choose more, then it just will have more and more subdivisions, right? And if you choose flat subdivisions, then it will have flat subdivisions. And it doesn't really change the shape of it here until I do this. And then you can do a Q grid, which will give you kind of the shapes in between what you have here, right? So you can get kind of a softer cube or a harsher cube. So dynamic subdiv is really good to use with good topology. But if I go and Dynamesh this, so let's go ahead and Dynamesh this thing. Right, so I've got this Dynameshed model. And let me go for something even less than this. Let me go for something like 32 and redynamesh it. Oops. Turn Dynamesh off. Right, so, and if I start messing around with this, notice that first of all, in dynamic subdiv, it's really slow, and you don't want that. So you should turn dynamic subdiv off. And now you can Dynamesh, work on it, do all sorts of stuff to it. And then when you're done, right, you can turn dynamic subdiv on again. And it's not really going to give you a lot of benefit. So dynamic subdiv is really not something you want to use with Dynamesh. I mean, you can, but you want to use it with things that have low poly count. So here, for example, like if I have this cylinder or this pipe right here, let me choose that one. Right, so here if I do dynamic subdiv on this, then I get this shape, right? So I get something a lot more sophisticated, like a barrel shape or something like that, which works really well. And then I can tweak this and get all sorts of different shapes out of it with dynamic subdiv. But I don't want to do that with something like that has a lot of detail. So I don't want to do that with something that has, that's been kind of maybe use something with Sculptress mode or something that's Dynameshed. I don't want that to use dynamic subdiv with that. So dynamic subdiv works really good with really low topology models, like my car over here, right? So here, you can see that all of the parts that I have are very low. The geometry is really kind of nominal, right? So we looked at this part right here. You can see that there's almost nothing there. It's very, very little geometry. So dynamic subdiv works really good with that. And then if I want a high-res version of this, I can always subdivide it, and this is exactly what I will get. So if I take this model and go off of dynamic subdiv, and then I subdivide it 3 times, then I will get exactly that same model that I had before. Does that make sense, KB? So yeah, if it does, let me know. If it doesn't, I can. I mean, you'll see me do quite a bit of work with dynamic subdiv in what I'm doing here. Okay, and so now let's see what's the next part we're going to work on. I kind of want to finish this part here as much as I can today. I want to finish all of it if I can, and then maybe we'll have some time to do some parts for the inside. Okay, so this one, notice here that this part is not dynamically subdivided, right? So again, all I need to do is press D. Now it's dynamically subdivided. And the only kind of issue that I'm having is I'm not having this sharp edge over here. And I can do it with creasing, but I'm not going to use creasing just yet. I think I'm going to see if I can get away with not using creasing and just kind of bending these around to get the shape that I want. KB, I still haven't heard back whether that answered your question or not. Because like tears and stuff like that, I really wouldn't worry about that in what I'm doing, because I really have very few polygons that I'm working with. And notice here that partially also, I really kind of, topology is something that I do study a lot. So, you know, a lot of things that I'm doing here are because I understand how topology works, and unfortunately there's no way. So here, for example, I need more topology, so I'm just going to go ahead and go into Zmodeler and add one more edge loop over there. It really needed it. And so now I'll go back. And topology is one of those things where it's, you know, some of it can be taught, but a lot of it is you have to really work on your model to get your topology to work correctly. Okay, and I don't think, did we do this piece? No, we didn't do this big piece in the middle. Maybe I should do that first. All right, so here, again, this one does not have dynamic subdiv, so I'm going to turn that on. Turn off polyframe and start getting this to be more of a hard surface shape. I'm really unhappy with this area right here, these right angles, so I will have to put parts on top of that to cover it. Right, so today we probably will be done with this exterior part, and then next week what we'll probably do is, one, I'll take it into Keyshot for you guys so you can see what it looks like in Keyshot. And then also I will start working on adding all the different parts that go outside of this model, all the different parts that will be kit bash parts, or model them using the light, what's this thing called? The not Lightbox, but the Spotlight. And I'll be using some of these to create different pieces for it. And so we'll add pieces for the inside and add pieces for the outside. So all the modeling will be done the next time, and then the time after that is just basically rendering and look dev, which is the funnest part. And we'll mostly be doing that in Keyshot. And maybe Octane. Hopefully Keyshot 9 will be out by then, and I'd love to use that. Okay, so here I'm just kind of determining how this looks. I think I had another question. Okay, cool, KB. Happy to help. Yeah, ZBrush is one of those tools where it's, traditionally it's been used just for organic modeling, and most of the modelers, ZBrush modelers, are organic modelers. Like, so if you go watch a lot of the streams, most of the people are doing organic stuff. And I mean, it's amazing for that. I'm not saying it's not. It is like a really, really cool tool to do organic modeling, cartoony characters, all that is just awesome. But I think there's, for me, my aesthetic is more hard surface, so uh, you know, I kind of try to get ZBrush to do the things I want it to do, and luckily it does them really well. All right. I just want to see what this thing looks like as a surface. And let's turn perspective off. And it's a little bit wonky, so I'm going to inflate it out a bit. Oh, I lost my material. Boo-hoo. I'm going to go back and try and see if I can get it back. Okay, this looks good, and let's choose basic material too. Okay, so you see, like, right as you do that, you can really see, like, this area right here. You can see that pinch. You don't want that. So I'm just going to try and smooth around it. And I want this part to bulge out a bit. And you can move your light around too, just to kind of get a better. Okay, so there's a little bit of wobbliness here, but it doesn't matter. This is on the bottom, and I'll probably have parts on top of this to cover it up as well. And I can always use good old H polish to give it a bit of adjustment. Okay, so I'm kind of, I really hate this piece right here. Like, I'm not happy with it at all. And I'm going to see if I can get away with doing something interesting with this part. No, I can't. I mean, let's see if I do this. Oops. I'm going to mask this part. Here's the other thing that's cool. Since it's, not a lot of polygons, I can mask it. Like, what if I did some, this is now this is going to be horizontal too. Jeez. All right. So I'll have to put some, basically I'll have to put some part on top of that to hide that piece. All right. Wang Chao 1997 1. Where am I from? Why does that matter? Are you just curious, or is there a reason why you're asking? Okay. So this piece here in the front is looking a little bit like it doesn't have straight lines, so I need to tweak those out. Is that a curve on? No, that's why. All right. Now I can get those better angles. Here we go. And part of me wants to have all these parts stand out on their own, but they don't really have to. They just have to work well together. So, okay, and I think I was done with this piece, but I can adjust it a little bit more, like so. Or was I done with that piece? No, nope, I wasn't done with that piece. I was done with this one. So you can see there's a little bit more of a gap in there, but I can throw a couple of kit bash pieces underneath it just to kind of look like there's stuff underneath, and that's fine. Okay. And I I can kind of nudge these together with AccuCurve, and they get, I just want to make sure that I got these. Okay, so now you can see here at the bottom. Okay, so you see this wobbliness here. That's not good. Turn this off. I'm just going to get rid of this wobbliness so it just looks like it's a clean kind of transition of a surface. And the funny thing is, if you look at cars, I mean, they are pretty good in a showroom, but if you look at them out in the wild, they do have a little bit of wobbliness to them over time. The metal bends. All right. Oh, China? Okay. Really? Wang Chao, you're watching from China? That's great. Where in China are you? I was almost going to be there on a lecture tour, but it got postponed. I know it's a big place. I don't know if I was going to be anywhere where you are. All right. How are we doing on time? Oh, wow. It's almost 8:30. Okay. So here is just a few more transitions on this piece, and I'm done with it. There. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was going to go to Nanjing. That's where my lecture tour was going to be. I don't know if you've been there. And I was going to stop by Shanghai as well on the way because it's close. Oh, good question, Eden Kamikaze. I am using a Wacom tablet, and it's just the Wacom Intuos Pro in the medium size. And I've been using it for a very long time, and I love it. A lot of artists here use Cintiqs, which is great too. I do have a portable one that I take with me, but when I'm working at home, I usually just use this tablet that I've had for quite a while, and it works really great. You definitely want to use a tablet with Zbrush. You don't want to do it with a mouse. So Wacom, and I'll show you the exact same one that I use. It's this one right here. Wacom has really the best tablets. I mean, there are quite other companies that have tablets now. They're a little bit cheaper, but Wacom's tablets, like especially if you are on a budget, you can get these pen tablets right here. And so there's the Pro ones, and then there's these Intuos ones too. These are fine. I've seen some artists use these, but you probably want one of these if you want pressure sensitivity. And they have them in 3 different sizes, and you don't really have to get the big one. I don't know why that's even available. I guess some people really need it, but I have the medium one, which is this one. But I know a lot of artists that use the small one too, and they're quite happy with it. So and they work really great. The pen is really comfortable. It works really, really nice. Yeah. But of course, you can, if you have the money, get a Cintiq because then you can be working on the screen itself. But like I said, I have the portable Cintiq that I take to jobs with me. And God, I'm just hating this piece right here. I'm just going to do this. Actually, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it so that it's open over here. So I'm just going to completely tweak this thing in like that. Here we go. So that's a shape that I like more, and I'm just going to leave that open like that. And I'm going to have something come out of it. And while I'm doing that, I might do that somewhere else as well. Okay, so we fixed that. Man, that looks so much better. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's all right, looks like this paneling is kind of off So I need to bring this up to match it. There we go. Okay, and then bring this up to match it as well. By the way, I've been using a Wacom tablet forever. Back when I used to work at Microsoft, we used to use them for Windows for pens, and I've been using Wacom tablets since then. So like since 1995. I'm kind of going to play that trick down here too. I'm going to have this be open, and then also I can do something like this, where not only do I have the panel open, but it's also bending around. And I can have stuff coming out of here. Oh yeah, that looks good. That looks perfect. I can do the same thing here. Like I can just take this entire thing and do this to it. No, I think I'm going to leave it be. Okay. All right, let's see. New Mobile Studio Pro, but I read a lot of people were disappointed with the first gen model. Did you have that one as your portable one, and are you happy? Yeah, Ryan's Pixels. I have this one right here. So I have the Mobile Studio Pro. This one, the 16. Actually, no, this is a newer one. They have a newer one with new capabilities. I have the older one than this. And what I would do is if you want to buy one of these things, I'd keep an eye out for people dumping the old ones to get the new one. You know, and they might be selling it pretty cheap. But I had this one, but I had the one before it as well, and I was pretty happy with it. I gave the one that I had to somebody else, the one before this one, and then this model, it looks like this, but it's not this one. It's the one even before this one. And I like it a lot. It works great. So when I'm working remotely, that's what I use. That way I don't have to carry a laptop and a tablet and, you know, and a bunch of stuff with me. I just carry that. It's pretty nice and light. It works great. So when I'm on a job and they don't have a machine for me, I just use that. But most of the time they have machines for me. Depends. Depends on the company, depends on time, depends on the crunch mode that they're in. Wacom Bamboo is great. Yeah, you can use those. So there's a lot of different machines you can use. You want the 32, but it's so expensive. You mean the Cintiq 32? Yeah. That thing's a beast. I don't know why you'd want something that big. I mean, you're really not going to move your hands all over that thing. You'll get tired. I mean, you'll be buff, right? Yeah, I mean, if you can afford it, that's great. I know some people that have it. They love it. Me personally, I'm happy with kind of the smaller screen size because I just want to move my hands a certain distance. But I guess if you're working on a screen, then it does matter, especially if you do painting and whatnot. Sean, I authored the book for it by Cybex. Oh, no, I don't. It's funny thing is that ever since I started using Zbrush heavily, I stopped using Mudbox. I don't use it at all. Sometimes if I'm on a job and they only have Mudbox, I convince them to let me use Zbrush. I mean, Zbrush just has so much more capability than Mudbox does. And they haven't really done anything with Mudbox for a while, so it's still kind of the same thing. So, and Zbrush has added so much since then. Like, I think they've had like a bunch of versions since Mudbox. So, yeah. I thought Autodesk would do more with it, but they ended up just kind of ditching it. I could definitely not do this stuff with Modbox, what I'm doing here. No way. You know, the funny thing is that my book is still available on Amazon. Like, people still buy it. I still get questions on it every once in a while. I still have it on my machine, the old version, so if people have questions, I can answer them for. I can answer the questions. I think this piece is done, so I'm going to move this down. All right, we're getting done here, folks. We're pretty close. I think I might do it in this one episode. That door I need to work on. I probably won't do that on the stream. Yeah, everyone uses Zbrush. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's somebody who said they have the 24 and it's massive. I think 24 is the right size. So if I were to get a Cintiq, if Wacom is watching and they want to give me a Cintiq, a 24 would be what I would use. A 24 would be the perfect size. 32 I think is way too big. It's I think it's kind of I think it's good for people that just have that as their only monitor maybe. But for okay, so this piece was done. Let's move it down here. Okay, so I'm going to hide all the pieces that I don't have done. And we'll see, most of the car is pretty much coming together here. Okay, cool. Let's move to these parts. Okay, these ones I think are kind of almost done too. So let me see here. Yep, there's a little bit of transitions that need to be fixed. The good news is that Wacom has all sorts of different sizes and all sorts of different configurations. What I recommend is before buying one, do your homework. Make sure that the one you want is the right one. I know a lot of people that go ahead and buy a tablet and they buy the big one and then they regret it. So make sure that if you are getting the big one that you have a reason for it, like you're making big gestures or you're going to be tracing big pieces of paper or have a specific reason why you like that size. Don't just get it because, oh yeah, I want to get the biggest one because it's the best one. Okay, so it doesn't work that way. And it's kind of tricky over here, but not too bad. By the way, while I'm doing this, so I've kind of taken a hiatus from working this month until November, and I'm basically focusing on finishing this thing. And also, I am doing a tutorial for Gnomon. I'm doing another one for the Gnomon workshop, and it's going to be mech. There's a lot of ZBrush in it. A lot of ZBrush. So if you guys are subscribers to the Gnomon workshop, you can see it there, hopefully in the next couple of months. We just need to edit it once I'm done with it, and then that's going to be available. And that's going to be a really cool mech. Maybe on my last episode, I will give you guys a preview of what the result is. All right, I think this piece is done too, so let's move that down. Yep. Yeah, again, it's so funny because whenever I get together with other ZBrush artists, we always have this conversation, and people that like using Cintiqs, the bigger Cintiqs, they usually swear by them. They're like, "Oh no, my work completely changed after I got it," and I believe them. If people do a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of ZBrush artists that do a lot of paint overs and a lot of kind of, once they are done with the model, they load it into Photoshop and they do a lot of Photoshop work on it. I can totally see how that would be useful. I can totally see how having a big Cintiq would be useful if you're doing a lot of kind of painting with Photoshop and using Photoshop and kind of working on the screen. I can totally see how that would be useful. I tend to do a lot of my work in modeling and then just render it, and then I do minimal touch-ups in Photoshop. Right, so here I'm kind of liking this design for the trunk, so I think I'm going to keep it. And I'll have something inside there, because this looks a lot more interesting than if it was butting up against it. Okay, and maybe I will do the same thing with the trunk. Ease that up and just do something like this. Okay, and then there'll be some sort of a handle or something that comes out of there. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, so I talked to Alex about that. I think Alex has a lot of interesting stuff that he does. He's got a whole school to run, which is, in my opinion, one of the best out there. And I think he does personal work, but I don't know if he shows it or if he talks about it. But I learned a lot from Alex's videos back in the VHS days. I've learned a lot from Alex. His initial Maya tutorials were great. He's got some really cool Zbrush tutorials, and they're all still available on the Gnomon Workshop. You can still watch them there. Yep, he definitely is a big deal, big influence on what we do here. I think we all owe him a big debt of gratitude for being who he is and the things that he's done for this industry. Okay. Yeah, using a mouse. There are people that use a mouse with ZBrush, believe it or not. There are people that do really well with it. I could not imagine. It would drive me nuts. My wrists are hurting just thinking about that. I think I'm going to do that same design trick here where I'm just going to leave this open and then have little things that come out and attach to the trunk instead of just having it butt up against it. All right, so that's good. Call that done. So make sure here, look at it from all different angles, that it is kind of flowing with the surface. AccuCurve back on, pinch that out. Okay, so a lot of the work I did here, I don't think a lot of artists do or show, but this is kind of a really nice way of getting your surfaces to kind of work well together. And let's see, maybe do that. There we go. Okay, so the trunk I think is good. Maybe pull it out this way a bit more. Yep, okay, good. Trunk is done. I'm just going to reverse this. I'm going to reverse it to the parts that I'm going to hide all the finished parts and just show all the unfinished parts here. I'm going to hide the drone over here too, and I'm going to also hide the interior pieces. All right, so we just have these to do. The door I'm not going to do. This part's almost done. Why is the trunk still here? Why are these two pieces here? I can move them down. Okay, so where is this one? Oh, that's because it's selected. Okay, here we go. And this bottom piece is done too, so I'll move that down. You can see here that I haven't named these yet, so I'll probably go in and name them next week. Everything will be named, have some sort of a name. It's always good to kind of name your pieces so that if you're working with a team that they know what's going on. I'm not working with a team, I'm working with myself, so if I'm going to work on this model again in the future, which I probably will, I think this is going to be kind of something I work on quite a bit. I tend to rework on my models, make changes to them. So, all right, so this is going to be kind of under where the people are sitting. And for this, I think I am going to have it kind of conform to the shape here, like this. Remember, this was glass over here, so I actually will have this go over it, because the glass has to attach to it somewhere. So there we go. And I can be pretty liberal with the way I push this. Okay, let's see. I guess there's some questions. Oh yeah, you mean Alex's tutorials? The humanoid guy? He used to do a lot of kind of demonic monsters and things like that that looked pretty cool. I always liked Alex's tutorials because he went through a lot of different technologies. Like he would use Maya, he'd use Zbrush, he'd use UV layout, he'd use all the different tools together. He's got this one Mondo tutorial that's like many different chapters. Right, so since this is glass 2, I'm going to kind of visit this part and bring it over. Like so. Okay, I think these are done. I guess I just need to fix this bottom part here. Turn transparency here, just I want to make sure it's not intersecting. It was over here, and I don't want it to intersect over here, so that's good. Okay. Yep, this is done. Move it down. Okay, what's this? Still the door. Okay, so I think the only thing I'm going to be left with up here is the door. I've got three more parts to do. Okay, so this part here is going to be an interesting one that I have to figure out. Do I have auto masking on or off? Auto masking, no, I don't. I'm not auto masking. I'm just working on different subtools. I think auto masking, which I think you're talking about, is down here. Auto masking, auto mask insert mesh, and auto mask fiber mesh. I mean, these are on, but I don't think it affects it. And if you're asking about backface masking, that's off. I don't have that on. All right. I don't know how the color got really dark all of a sudden. Did I change materials? No, I'm using the same material. I go because I turned off ghosting, that's why. All right, so here I've got this part. And this part, I kind of can't do this side of it because the door's not done. But I can do these other parts. I think this part's kind of done too. And this part here is going to be where I have rear view mirrors that are going to pop up. So I'm just going to leave that the way it is. And okay, let's see here. I'm going to move this part down. I think this is good. Last piece that is not the door are these back pieces. I think this is done too. Oh, thank you, Zbrush, for reminding to autosave. Let's have that do the autosave. And then how are we doing on time? We're good. We're almost done, which is perfect. So pretty much the only thing that's left to be done is the door, and I will do that offline. I will do the door offline when I am done with it, and next week we'll have the car finished pretty much, the outside part, and then we'll focus on the inside, and we'll also focus on kit bash parts. So here I'm going to turn these two off. I'm going to do something interesting with this part here, where I'm going to also create some scoops. So I'm going to take this part and just pull it out like that and create a scoop. So maybe this could be like an air intake or something like that. And let me turn AccuCurve off. So I'm basically making a design change over here. So I'm going to have all these wavy parts, and I'm going to have, you know, this is going to be a scoop. And then since I did that, I can push this in, that freedom. And so I've just basically created this coupe over here like so. So last minute surprise here. Okay, so what I would recommend you do is my Gumroad is Kermaco or gumroad.com/Kermaco, Kermaco. And I don't think there's anything on it now. Let me go see. But pretty soon, I'm almost done with putting it up. So if you guys want those IMM brushes, go get them. The free one you should get anyway. I mean, why not? But it's gumroad.com/Kermaco, Kermaco. Right? If you go there, okay, so there it is, but I don't really have my thing posted. If you want, you can just put in your email address and click follow, and then if you do that, as soon as it's up, you'll get an email that says they're up. And like I said, it's probably going to be sometime tomorrow or the day after. They will be there. And so you also probably want to follow me on Gumroad because I'm going to have new things on there as well. I'm working on a couple of other brushes. One that's going to be a kind of a bullet brush, which is pretty cool. You can see some examples of it on Instagram, and I'm doing a couple others ones too. So if you guys want to be part of that or use it in your kind of projects, then you can follow me on Gumroad. And they're going to be Gumroad prices, of course. I'm basically going to figure out what the best pricing is. There'll be free stuff and there'll be stuff for nominal fees because yeah. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like now on its own just to make sure I've got it. So this car right now, if people are curious, it's taken me about maybe 16 hours. It's taking about maybe 16 hours, maybe about 3 days to do this. So that's not actually that bad. All right, so now I've kind of changed the entire design of my car by adding these scoops. And as a matter of fact, I'm liking them quite a bit. Let's look at his silhouette. Very cool. And so next week I'll probably have some parts in here. And maybe I will work out the door so it kind of works with these new shapes that I have. All right, so this shape is done too. And then what are these shapes over here? Where are they? Oh, they're inside over here. That's where they are. Okay, let's get these last ones done. And then we will call it a night. So if you guys have last minute questions, now's a good time to ask. Specifically on things that I'm doing here or questions on what I'm going to be doing next, which basically is going to be more of, I'm not going to be doing more of this. I think this is done. So next week we're just going to start adding kit bashing stuff into the interior of the car just to make it look interesting. We're not really going to have like in-depth zoom-ins of the interior, but we have a lot of glass in the car, so stuff needs to look really interesting inside, and so that's what we'll be doing. And also we'll be adding kit bash parts outside and then starting to load it into KeyShot to see what it looks like. So this is going to be in 2 weeks. I don't think it's on the schedule yet, but it will be soon here. All right. Just getting this last bit to match up here to this top part. Actually, I think this is going to be tucked in underneath here just fine. And we'll just do it all the way around. Okay, so this is good. Let's move it in. And all we're left it with up here, there's these pieces. Are these the, yep, so these can move down. All we're left in it with are these 3 pieces for the doors, which we're not going to do in the stream. I'll just have to figure out how to fill this area with the pieces that I have. Those are going to be an interesting challenge, but it shouldn't be that hard to do. And then the week after, we'll kind of do more work on it. So I'm just going to bring these back up because we're not going to see them, and I'll do kind of a couple of quick renders, and then we'll call it a night. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and turn on. Let's go ahead and turn on ambient occlusion and do a render like this. Okay. Oh, we don't have the interior. That's why I'm like, where are the people? Here we go. Let's turn them on. Do another render. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like from the front. And here's what it's going to look like from the top. I guess I should bring these 2 in too. Okay, let's look at the front again. So this is going to be the profile of the car from the front. Like so. And so let's turn perspective on. So if we have perspective on, it's going to look like this. Okay, and then looking at it from the top, it's going to look like this. So this is coming together pretty nicely. I might 3D print this one too. I might actually make it into some sort of a sculpture or some sort of a toy of some sorts. I think it would work good. I'm not going to do the side because, again, this door I haven't really finished. But I think that's good enough to leave it for today. Let me just kind of lighten up the color a bit here and do one more render. And let's see if they have any last minute questions. And then from that point on, we will... Okay, so... Oh, since I'm working with, okay, so the transparent pieces, all you got to do to make pieces transparent is just go down here under display properties and just, so if you're on a specific piece like here, let me be on the canopy, because right now I think I'm on some other piece. So if I'm on the canopy, which should be on top here, right here, like this piece right here, which is a glass piece, right? So all you got to do is just go to display properties and turn transparency, BPR transparency shading on. And when you do that, it'll turn it on here as well in the render properties, and then it'll be transparent. Okay, the doors, will they be DeLorean-like doors? No, I think, so this glass piece is going to open forward. So this glass piece is going to open up like this, right? So this kind of lifts up like that. And then these back pieces here open up as well. So they open up like that. And then the door, I think, is just going to open like a normal door, right? I might have it open up on top too. But if I do that, then there'll be like a lot of things. I think it'll be more interesting if it opens up normally. So here, if I choose the door, I think they'll open up like this. So this is what it'll look like with the doors open, more or less, right? So this is what it will be like for the people to get out. And this kind of creates visual interest too, so that if this was in a movie or something, if this happened for the guys to get out, it'd be kind of cool. And they're kind of protected too, so if they're like policemen or something, they can hide behind these things as well. Right, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about the doors at this moment. It might change by next week. Let's pop these back to where they were. And let's see, I would like to show you a project I'm working on for having some opinion. Can I contact you? Badmesh, yeah, you can email it to me. My email address is on my website. So if you go to kermaco.com. Okay. You can just click on contact here. And you can click on email, and then I think it brings up a form, or does it bring up, I don't know if it brings up, no, I think it brings up your email, whatever program you use for email, and do it that way. Yeah, so So you can email to me. Email me images. Don't email me ZBrush files or like big files or whatever, because I really don't have time to download them and look at them. Unfortunately, because I'm super busy with a lot of projects. But if you send me images, I'll be more than happy to look at them and give you some feedback. El Mirage, hi from Paris. Hello, bonjour or bonsoir. No, 6 a.m. Bonjour. Yeah. Um, and let's see. Um, Yeah, I don't know. JC, I'll try different door options. We'll do that next time. We'll finish that next time. Okay, folks. Really happy to have spent this time with you. Hopefully, you've enjoyed it as well. And please tune in a couple of weeks on Friday, and we will get closer to finishing this thing. And then the week after that, it will be done completely, and hopefully we can see what it looks like rendered and maybe put in a scenario. So with that, I bid you all good day, good night, and have a great tomorrow, and see you soon. Bye-bye.